Gloria sat across from Dongju in his private office suite, overlooking the San Francisco Bay, the afternoon light casting long shadows across his mahogany desk. The room was silent except for the distant hum of traffic below and the subtle click of the clock on the wall. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say during the entire elevator ride up to the 42nd floor, but now that she was here, the words felt inadequate. Still, she said them anyway. She reached across the desk, placed her hand over his, and spoke 5 simple words that made this intimidating Korean businessman freeze completely. "I'm so proud of you." Dongju's expression cracked. The mask he wore so carefully, the one that made competitors nervous and employees walk on eggshells, shattered in an instant. For the first time in decades, tears welled in his eyes. His jaw tightened as he fought against them, but they came anyway, threatening to spill over. His assistant, Michael, standing by the door with a tablet in hand, looked away in shock. In the 7 years he had worked for Dongju, he had never seen his boss show anything close to this kind of emotion. Not anger, not frustration, and certainly not tears. Gloria did not understand why these simple words hit him so hard, but she watched as 38 years of pain surfaced on his face. She had expected gratitude, maybe even a smile. She had not expected this. Dongju pulled his hand back quickly, the movement almost violent in its suddenness. He stood, his chair rolling backward, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. His reflection in the glass showed a man fighting to compose himself, his shoulders tense, his hands clenched at his sides. Gloria stayed seated, confused but patient. She had come here to thank him for helping her brother Kendrick avoid a predatory business deal that would have destroyed his future. She had come to express gratitude. But now she realized something deeper was happening, something she had accidentally triggered. The silence stretched. Michael quietly excused himself, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Finally, Dongju spoke, his voice rough and unfamiliar even to himself. "My whole life, no one has ever said that to me." Gloria's breath caught. She looked at this man who commanded rooms with his presence, who built a business empire worth hundreds of millions, who employed over 300 people across the West Coast, and she could not reconcile that person with the broken voice she just heard. "I don't understand," she said softly. Dongju turned from the window. His eyes were red, but he had regained some control. "Those words, that someone could be proud of me. I've spent 38 years achieving things, building things, winning things. I thought if I accomplished enough, someone would eventually say what you just said." He laughed bitterly. But they never did. The camera pulled back to show the contrast between them. Gloria in her modest gray blazer and black slacks, her fair skin glowing in the afternoon light, her natural hair pulled back in a professional bun. Dongju in his perfectly pressed navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary, his dark hair styled with precision, his posture radiating control even in this vulnerable moment. They stood in this luxurious office with its modern art and imported furniture, but an unexpected emotional chasm had opened between them, one that money and success could not bridge. Gloria stood slowly. "Dongju, I meant what I said. What you did for Kendrick, but more than that, what you did with Vincent Park. You chose to be better instead of just being powerful. That takes real strength." Dongju closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted. "Stay," he said quietly. "Please, I need to explain something, and I've never told anyone this story." Gloria nodded and sat back down. She had nowhere else to be, and honestly, she did not want to leave. Not now. Dongju returned to his desk but did not sit. Instead, he leaned against it, his posture more relaxed than she had ever seen in their months of working together. "I need to take you back," he said. "Back to where this all started. Because what you just said to me, those 5 words, they're connected to a lifetime of not hearing them, and you deserve to know why they broke me. Has anyone ever said something so simple to you that it completely broke you down? I want to hear from you in the comment section." Now, let's continue. 3 months earlier, Gloria had been sitting in a conference room in Bellevue, Washington, reviewing files for her next assignment. As a cultural consultant for international businesses expanding into American markets, She specialized in helping foreign companies navigate the complex cultural landscape of the United States. She had worked with Japanese tech firms, European luxury brands, and Middle Eastern investment groups. But this assignment was different. Her boss, Patricia, had dropped a thick folder on her desk with an expression that was half warning, half curiosity. "This one's going to be challenging," Patricia said. "Client is a Korean-American businessman named Dongju. Runs a major conglomerate based out of San Francisco and Seattle. Shipping logistics, commercial real estate, import-export operations. Completely legitimate, but he has a reputation." Gloria flipped through the folder. The financial statements were impressive. The business model was solid. The growth trajectory was remarkable for a company less than 15 years old. "What kind of reputation?" Patricia chose her words carefully. "People call him the Korean boss. Not because of any criminal activity, but because of how he operates. He's ruthless in business. Competitors who cross him find themselves legally destroyed. He's never lost a major negotiation. His team is fiercely loyal, almost cult-like, and he does not suffer fools." Gloria closed the folder. "So he's good at what he does and people are intimidated. That describes half my clients." "True," Patricia admitted. "But there's something else. He specifically requested a black cultural consultant. That's unusual. Most clients don't specify race." That got Gloria's attention. In her 8 years in this industry, she had dealt with plenty of unconscious bias and a few instances of overt racism, but she had never had a client specifically request her race. "Did he say why?" Patricia shook her head. "Just that he wanted someone who understood what it meant to be an outsider in elite American spaces. His words, not mine." 2 days later, Gloria found herself in a conference room in Dongju's Seattle headquarters, a sleek building in downtown Bellevue overlooking Lake Washington. The room was filled with his executive team, all Korean-American except for 2 white lawyers and an Indian-American financial advisor. Then Dongju walked in, and the room's energy shifted immediately. He was not the tallest man Gloria had ever seen, maybe 5'10", but he carried himself like he owned not just the room but the entire building. His dark eyes scanned the space with the precision of someone who missed nothing. He wore a charcoal gray suit with a crisp white shirt, no tie, the top button undone in a way that somehow looked more intimidating than formal. "Ms. Coleman," he said, his voice accented but clear, "thank you for coming." The meeting that followed was unlike any Gloria had experienced. Dongju did not engage in small talk. He did not waste time on pleasantries. He laid out exactly what he wanted. His company was expanding into new American markets, specifically targeting partnerships with established U.S. corporations. He needed someone who could advise him on cultural nuances, help his team navigate American business etiquette, and identify potential cultural pitfalls before they became problems. Gloria presented her preliminary analysis, the research she had done on his company and his industry. She did not hold back. She pointed out areas where his company's direct Korean business style might alienate American partners. She identified market opportunities he was missing. She challenged some of his assumptions about American business culture. His executive team looked nervous. One of them, a woman named Sun-hee, actually winced when Gloria directly contradicted something Dongju had said about American negotiation tactics. But Dongju just listened. He asked questions. He took notes. When Gloria finished, he sat back in his chair and studied her for a long moment. "You're not afraid of me," he observed. Gloria met his gaze steadily. "Should I be?" A hint of a smile crossed his face, gone so quickly she almost missed it. "Most people are." "I'm not most people," Gloria replied. "And if you wanted someone to just agree with you, you wouldn't have hired a consultant. You would have hired a yes man." The room went silent. Sun-hee looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Then Dongju nodded slowly. "You're right, I appreciate directness. We'll work well together." The meeting concluded with a 6-month contract and a generous compensation package. As everyone filed out, Dongju asked Gloria to stay for a moment. When they were alone, his demeanor shifted slightly. Still professional, but less guarded. You mentioned in your application that you grew up in Medina, he said, referring to one of the wealthiest small cities in America, located across Lake Washington from Seattle. Gloria nodded. My father was a maintenance supervisor at one of the tech campuses there. We lived in employee housing. I went to school with kids whose parents were executives and millionaires. That must have been difficult, Dongju said quietly. It was the first genuinely personal thing he had said all meeting. Gloria studied him, trying to understand where this was coming from. It was complicated, she admitted. I learned early how to navigate spaces where I didn't quite belong, where I was always being observed and judged. Something flickered in Dongju's expression. Recognition, maybe. Yes, he said. I understand that feeling very well. He did not elaborate, and Gloria did not push. But as she left his office that day, she had the strange sense that this job was going to be more than just another contract. She had no idea how right she was. Over the next 6 weeks, Gloria found herself working more closely with Dongju than she had anticipated. Most of her consulting contracts involved working primarily with middle management and occasionally presenting to executives. But Dongju wanted her in the room for everything: strategy meetings, partnership negotiations, even internal discussions about company culture. She learned that his organization operated with military precision but complete legitimacy. Every contract was airtight. Every business practice was documented. Every regulatory requirement was exceeded. Dongju had built his empire to be unassailable from a legal standpoint. She also learned about his reputation for ruthlessness. When a competitor tried to poach 3 of his senior logistics managers, Dongju did not just counteroffer. He initiated a systematic legal review of the competitor's business practices, found multiple regulatory violations, and reported them to federal authorities. The competitor's business was crippled by fines and investigations within months. That seems excessive, Gloria commented after hearing about it from Sun-hee. Those 3 managers had families who depended on our health insurance, Sun-hee explained. One had a daughter in cancer treatment. The competitor knew that and tried to exploit them anyway, offering more money but terrible benefits. Mr. Dongju does not forgive people who hurt his employees. Gloria began to understand. Dongju's ruthlessness was not random or cruel. It was protective. He had built a family of sorts with his company, and he defended that family with everything he had. She saw it in other ways, too. How he personally attended employees' weddings and funerals. How he quietly paid for college tuition for employees' children. How he had hired dozens of Korean immigrants and given them opportunities they could not find elsewhere, many of them people with spotty resumes or language barriers that other companies would not overlook. One evening, after a particularly successful presentation to a potential partner in Atherton, California, one of America's wealthiest towns, Dongju invited Gloria to dinner. They drove from the corporate campus in Atherton to a Korean restaurant in nearby Palo Alto, a place Dongju owned but rarely advertised. The owner, an elderly Korean woman named Mrs. Kim, greeted Dongju with obvious affection, calling him by a Korean name Gloria did not recognize and fussing over him like a favorite grandson. Over Korean barbecue and soju, the conversation shifted from business to personal territory. Mrs. Kim was one of the first people I hired when I started my business, Dongju explained. She needed help after her husband died and left her with debt. I bought this restaurant for her to manage. She's been here 14 years now. Gloria watched Mrs. Kim moving through the restaurant, greeting customers, supervising the kitchen. You do that a lot, don't you? Help people. Dongju shrugged, uncomfortable with the observation. I help people who work for me. That's just good business. It's more than that, Gloria pressed gently. Dongju was quiet for a moment, turning his shot glass in his hands. Then, perhaps influenced by the soju or perhaps by the growing trust between them, he began to talk. He told her about coming to America at 19 with $700 and a single suitcase. About his father, a businessman in Seoul who had made and lost 3 fortunes through bad decisions and worse drinking. About his mother, who had remarried after his father's death and made it clear that Dongju was a reminder of a past she wanted to forget. "She told me I was on my own," Dongju said, his voice flat in the way that indicated deep pain buried under practiced indifference. "That she had given me 18 years and that was enough. When I left for America, she did not come to the airport." Gloria felt something twist in her chest. "I'm sorry." Dongju shook his head. "Don't be. It made me strong. I learned that the only person I could depend on was myself. I worked 3 jobs that first year: delivery driver, restaurant dishwasher, warehouse night shift. I saved every dollar. I learned English by watching television and reading newspapers. I studied American business practices like my life depended on it because it did." He described building his first business, a small import company that brought Korean goods to Korean American communities. How he had reinvested every profit. How he had slowly expanded, always staying legal, always playing by the rules but playing harder and smarter than anyone else. "I learned that respect and fear look the same from a distance," he said. "People treated me better when they were afraid of me than when they pitied me, so I chose fear because it was easier." Gloria understood that philosophy more than she wanted to admit. She shared her own story. Growing up fair-skinned in a black family had meant navigating questions about her identity from all sides. Her parents had been supportive, her father especially, but she had always felt like she had to prove herself twice as hard. "In predominantly white spaces, I wasn't white enough," she explained. "People would make assumptions, then be confused when they met my family. In black spaces, people questioned my authenticity. I had family members make comments about me being light-skinned like it was an advantage, but it just felt isolating." She told him about excelling in school, about pushing herself into advanced classes and competitive programs, about learning that achievement was the only language everyone understood regardless of how they felt about her skin color or her background. "So I became fluent in it," she said. "Graduated top of my class, got into a good college, built a successful career. I thought if I achieved enough, people would stop questioning whether I belonged." "Did they?" Dongju asked. Gloria smiled sadly. "No, they just found new things to question. That's when I realized I was building my life around other people's validation. I was letting them define my worth." Dongju nodded slowly. "Yes, that's exactly it." They sat in silence for a moment, the restaurant humming with conversation around them. Gloria realized they had both built armor so thick they had forgotten what it felt like to be vulnerable. And somehow, sitting in this small restaurant in Palo Alto, they were carefully beginning to take that armor off. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. 2 weeks after that dinner, Gloria's carefully balanced world tilted sideways when her younger brother Kendrick called her in a panic. Kendrick was 26, energetic and optimistic in a way that Gloria both admired and worried about. He had bounced between jobs for a few years after college, trying to find his passion, and had finally settled on the idea of starting his own business. A fitness coaching company that would combine personal training with nutritional guidance and mental health support. Gloria thought it was a solid idea. Kendrick was charismatic and genuinely cared about helping people, but he lacked business experience and was too trusting of people who presented themselves as experts. Which was how he ended up sitting in a legal office in Santa Clara, about to sign documents that would have destroyed his financial future. "They're calling it an investment opportunity," Kendrick explained over the phone, his voice tight with stress. "Strategic capital partners. They want to fund my business, but I have to put up my savings as collateral and take on this loan structure that seems complicated, but they say it's standard for startups." Gloria's consultant instincts immediately went on alert. "Send me the documents. Don't sign anything yet." "The meeting is in 2 hours," Kendrick said. "They're pressuring me to decide today. They say if I don't commit now, the opportunity goes to someone else." That was red flag number 1. Legitimate investors did not pressure people into same-day decisions on major financial commitments. Gloria was in Seattle for meetings with Dongju's team, but she immediately called Kendrick's location and asked him to send photos of the documents. What she saw made her blood run cold. Strategic Capital Partners was offering to invest in Kendrick's business, but the terms were predatory. Kendrick would have to take a $70,000 personal loan with a 19% interest rate, use his savings as collateral, and give Strategic Capital 60% ownership of his company. If the business failed within 3 years, Kendrick would still owe the full loan amount plus penalties. If the business succeeded, Strategic Capital could buy out his remaining shares at a preset low valuation. It was a scam dressed up in legal language. Kendrick would take all the risk and debt, while Strategic Capital positioned themselves to profit either way. Gloria immediately called Kendrick back. "Do not sign those documents. This is predatory. They're going to take your money and leave you with debt." But Kendrick was hesitant. "They seem legitimate, Gloria. They have a nice office and lawyers and everything. They showed me other companies they've funded." "Did you verify those companies independently?" Gloria demanded. "Silence. Kendrick, please, trust me on this. I do this for a living. This is a scam." But she could hear the doubt in his voice. Kendrick wanted so badly for this to be real, for someone to believe in his dream enough to invest in it, that he was letting hope override common sense. Gloria felt helpless. She was 3 hours away by plane. She could not physically stop him from signing. In desperation, during a break in her meeting with Dongju's team, she mentioned the situation. She did not ask for help. She just needed to vent her frustration to someone who would understand predatory business practices. Dongju listened quietly as she explained the situation. When she finished, he asked, "What's the name of the company?" "Strategic Capital Partners, based in Santa Clara." Dongju pulled out his phone and stepped away from the table. Gloria heard him speaking rapidly in Korean to someone. When he returned, he simply said, "Your brother will be fine. Tell him not to sign anything today. The company will withdraw their offer." Gloria stared at him. "What? How can you possibly know that?" Dongju's expression was unreadable. "Trust me, he'll get a call within the hour." Gloria did not understand, but something in Dongju's certainty made her believe him. She called Kendrick and convinced him to stall, to tell Strategic Capital he needed one more day to review with his family. 45 minutes later, Kendrick called back, stunned. They just withdrew the offer, said they had to reallocate their investment capital to another opportunity. What the hell just happened? Gloria looked across the conference table at Dongju, who was calmly reviewing a logistics contract like nothing unusual had occurred. She found out later, through discreet inquiries with one of Dongju's senior lawyers, what had actually happened. Within minutes of their conversation, Dongju had his legal team initiate a comprehensive compliance audit request to Strategic Capital Partners. They had submitted documentation requests to California's Department of Business Oversight. They had filed inquiries about Strategic Capital's lending practices with federal regulators. All of it was perfectly legal. All of it was publicly available information that anyone could request. But the volume and specificity of the requests sent a clear message. Someone with resources and legal expertise was looking very closely at Strategic Capital's business model. For a predatory company operating in legal gray areas, that kind of scrutiny was devastating. They had immediately backed away from Kendrick to avoid drawing more attention. When Gloria confronted Dongju about it after the meeting, in the privacy of his office, he was dismissive. "I made a few phone calls, asked my lawyers to do some research. It's not a big deal." "You buried them in legal documentation in under an hour," Gloria said. "For my brother, someone you've never met." Dongju looked uncomfortable, like he did not know how to handle her gratitude. The company was predatory. They deserved scrutiny. "But you didn't do it for abstract justice," Gloria pressed. "You did it because I was upset, because I cared about Kendrick." Dongju finally met her eyes. "Yes, because you cared about him. That seemed important." Gloria felt something shift in her chest. In her entire adult life, she could not remember the last time someone had done something this significant for her without expecting anything in return. Her family loved her, but they were used to Gloria being the strong one, the one who solved problems. Her friends cared about her, but this was beyond what friendship usually entailed. Dongju had used his considerable power and resources to help her brother, a stranger to him, simply because Gloria cared. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I don't know how to properly thank you for this." Dongju stood from his desk and walked to the window, his usual position when he was uncomfortable with emotion. "You don't owe me anything, Gloria. I just did what needed to be done." But they both knew it was more than that. Kendrick, once he got over his initial embarrassment at nearly being scammed, was incredibly grateful. He insisted on meeting Dongju to thank him personally. That meeting happened 2 weeks later at a coffee shop in Bellevue, and Gloria watched with fascination as her energetic, outgoing brother navigated a conversation with the normally intimidating businessman. Dongju was different with Kendrick, patient, almost gentle. He gave Kendrick advice about starting a business, about vetting partners, about building something sustainable. He did not talk down to him or make him feel stupid for almost falling for the scam. "Everyone gets targeted at some point," Dongju told him. "The only difference between people who succeed and people who fail is whether they have someone watching their back. You have Gloria. That's a significant advantage." Kendrick left that meeting with not just gratitude but genuine respect for Dongju. "I like him," he told Gloria afterward. "He's intense, but he's real. You can tell he actually cares." Gloria was starting to realize the same thing. The weeks following the incident with Kendrick brought a subtle but unmistakable shift in Gloria's relationship with Dongju. Their professional dynamic remained the same on the surface. She still consulted on his business expansion. She still attended strategy meetings and provided cultural analysis. But underneath, something deeper was growing. Gloria started noticing things about Dongju that she had missed before. How he remembered small details about his employees' lives. How he personally mentored young Korean Americans in his organization, especially those from difficult backgrounds. How his ruthlessness in business was always targeted at people who hurt others, never random cruelty. She watched him navigate a difficult negotiation with a potential partner who tried to lowball his company's valuation. Dongju could have walked away or aggressively countered. Instead, he calmly presented documented proof of his company's worth, gave the partner 24 hours to reconsider, and maintained perfect professionalism throughout. The partner came back with a fair offer. Later, Sunhee told Gloria that the old Dongju would have burned that bridge completely. "He's changing," Sunhee observed. "I don't know why, but he's different lately." Gloria had a suspicion about why, but she did not voice it. The shift became undeniable during a business trip to Newport Beach, one of California's wealthiest coastal cities. Dongju was presenting a proposal to a major shipping corporation, and he had asked Gloria to attend to provide cultural insight on the company's executive team. The presentation went well until Gloria made a minor but noticeable mistake. She mixed up 2 executives' names during her segment, a rookie error born from too little sleep and too much coffee. It was embarrassing and unprofessional. She expected Dongju to be angry. His reputation suggested he did not tolerate errors, especially not in high-stakes meetings. But when the presentation ended and they returned to their hotel, Dongju simply pulled her aside privately. "It happens," he said calmly. "You were tired. Fix it with a follow-up email and move forward." Gloria was stunned. "I'm sorry, I should have been more prepared." Dongju shrugged. "You're human. I've made worse mistakes than mixing up names. Learn from it and let it go." It was such a small moment, but it revealed something important. Dongju's standards were high, but his expectations were realistic. He understood that people were not machines. That evening, they walked along the beach. The Newport Beach coastline was beautiful in the fading sunlight, expensive homes rising up the hills, yachts bobbing in the marina. Gloria and Dongju walked in comfortable silence for a while before Gloria asked the question that had been building in her mind for weeks. "Why are you different with me than with other people?" Dongju stopped walking. For a long moment, he stared at the ocean, watching the waves roll in with mathematical precision. Then he said, because you see me as a person first." Gloria waited for him to continue. "Everyone else sees the reputation, the money, the power," Dongju explained quietly. "They see what I've built and they either want something from me or they're afraid of me, even people I've worked with for years, even people I consider friends. There's always this distance, this awareness of who I am and what I can do." He turned to look at her, and in the evening light, Gloria saw vulnerability she had never witnessed before. "But you," he continued, "you've never been afraid of me. You've never wanted anything from me except honesty. From the first meeting, you treated me like a person who could be wrong, who could learn, who could improve. Not like some untouchable figure, just a person." Gloria's heart was beating faster. This was not just about professional respect anymore. They both knew it. "I've spent my whole life trying to become someone worthy of respect," Dongju said. "I built an empire. I won every battle. I proved every doubter wrong. And I thought if I achieved enough, someone would finally be proud of me. My mother would call and say she was wrong about me. My father, if he were alive, would see what I'd become and approve." His voice caught slightly. "But they never did. And I realized that achievement and approval are not the same thing. I could own half of California and it still wouldn't make my mother proud. I could win every business deal in America and it wouldn't erase the fact that my father thought I was worthless." Gloria felt tears prick her eyes. She understood that pain more than she wanted to admit. The endless striving for validation that never came. "You asked why I'm different with you," Dongju said. "It's because you're the first person in my adult life who makes me feel like I don't have to be perfect to be worth knowing. You see my flaws and you don't flinch. You challenge me and it doesn't feel like an attack. You care about me and it doesn't come with conditions." He looked away, uncomfortable with his own vulnerability. "I don't know what to do with that. I've spent so long being untouchable that I don't know how to let someone in." Gloria stepped closer. Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Then stop trying to figure it out and just let it happen." Dongju looked down at their joined hands like he was seeing something impossible. "I'm not good at this. Relationships, vulnerability, I'll probably mess it up." "Probably," Gloria agreed with a small smile. "But I'm not perfect either. We'll mess it up together." For the first time since Gloria had met him, Dongju smiled genuinely. Not the professional smile he used in meetings. Not the polite smile he gave employees. A real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. "I'd like that," he said quietly. They stood on the beach as the sun set over Newport Beach. Two people who had spent their lives building walls, finally finding someone worth tearing those walls down for. Gloria knew this was complicated. Workplace relationships were risky. Their cultural backgrounds were different. His reputation would make people scrutinize everything about their relationship. There were 100 reasons to be cautious. But standing there with Dongju, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers, Gloria decided that for once in her carefully planned life, she was going to take a risk. For 3 weeks, Gloria and Dongju existed in a bubble of cautious happiness. They did not announce their relationship. They kept things professional in public, but in private moments, in quiet dinners and late-night conversations, they built something real. Gloria learned that Dongju was funny in an understated way, that he loved old movies and could quote entire scenes from classic films, that he was surprisingly terrible at cooking despite owning multiple restaurants, that he had a recurring nightmare about showing up to important meetings unprepared, a dream that revealed the deep insecurity beneath his confident exterior. Dongju learned that Gloria was fiercely competitive about board games, that she sang off-key in the shower and did not care who heard, that she was afraid of birds, a phobia she developed after being chased by a goose as a child, that she sometimes doubted whether her success was real or just luck. They learned each other's rhythms and patterns, how Dongju needed silence in the morning to think, how Gloria processed emotions by talking through them, how they both struggled with vulnerability but were trying to get better at it. It felt fragile and precious, this thing they were building, which made it all the more devastating when Vincent Park decided to destroy it. Vincent Park ran Pacific Logistics International, a shipping company that had been losing contracts to Dongju's corporation for 3 years straight. Vincent was a second-generation Korean American who had inherited his father's company and had been systematically running it into the ground through poor decisions and worse business practices. He blamed Dongju for his failures. In Vincent's mind, if Dongju's company did not exist, Pacific Logistics would still be thriving. The fact that Dongju had built his empire through better service, smarter strategy, and superior execution did not matter to Vincent. He just saw a competitor who needed to be eliminated. For months, Vincent had been looking for weaknesses in Dongju's organization. He had hired private investigators. He had tried to poach employees. He had spread rumors in industry circles. Nothing had worked. Then he noticed Gloria. It started with public records. Gloria's consulting contract was filed with California business registries. Her visits to Dongju's offices were logged by building security. Her attendance at business dinners could be tracked through credit card receipts from Dongju's corporate account. Vincent's investigator, a man named Derek Chen, was good at his job. He found the paper trail. He noticed the pattern. He observed Gloria and Dongju leaving a restaurant in Palo Alto together, their body language suggesting something more than a professional relationship. Derek compiled everything into a file: photos taken from public spaces, documentation of Gloria's contract, background information on her family, including Kendrick's near miss with Strategic Capital Partners and the mysterious legal intervention that saved him. Vincent looked through the file and smiled. He had found his weapon. On a Tuesday morning, Gloria received a text from an unknown number asking her to meet at a coffee shop in Santa Clara. The message claimed to have information about Dongju that she needed to know. Gloria's instinct was to ignore it, but something about the phrasing made her curious. She agreed to meet in a public place, during daylight, with her phone location shared with Kendrick for safety. Vincent was waiting at a corner table, a thick envelope in front of him. He introduced himself politely, ordered coffee for both of them, and slid the envelope across the table. "I think you should know who you're working for," he said. Gloria opened the envelope carefully. What she found inside made her stomach drop. The file was a masterpiece of manipulation. It contained real information presented in the most damaging context possible. Photos of Dongju's senior associates, several of whom had criminal records from decades ago before they reformed their lives. Legal complaints filed against Dongju's company by business rivals, all dismissed but presented as evidence of wrongdoing. Surveillance photos of Dongju meeting with various people, captioned with implications of illegal activity. There were photos of cash transactions that were actually documented employee bonuses. Images of meetings with lawyers presented as evidence of criminal conspiracy. Financial records showing large payments to individuals, which were actually medical bill assistance for employees' families, but the file implied they were bribes or payoffs. The file even included information about how Dongju had intervened in Kendrick's situation with Strategic Capital, framed as evidence that Dongju used his power to intimidate legitimate businesses. It was all technically true, but completely false in implication. Vincent watched her face as she read. "The man you're working for isn't who you think he is," he said smoothly. "He's dangerous. He operates in gray areas. Those people he employs, some of them have serious criminal backgrounds. Those payments he makes, they're not all legitimate. He destroys competitors using questionable tactics." Gloria's hands shook as she held the papers. Everything she had built with Dongju, all the trust and vulnerability, suddenly felt uncertain. She wanted to dismiss this as lies, but the documents looked real. The photos were clearly genuine. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. Vincent leaned forward with false concern. "Because you seem like a good person who doesn't know what she's gotten involved with. I've been tracking Dongju's organization for years. He's not who he pretends to be." Gloria left that meeting shaken and confused. She sat in her car for 20 minutes, reading through the file again and again, trying to reconcile the man she knew with the implications in these documents. Her rational mind told her this was manipulation, The timing was too convenient. Vincent was a known competitor. This was obviously an attack. But doubt was a powerful poison, and Vincent had administered it expertly. That evening, Gloria went to Dongju's office in San Francisco. She walked past Michael without her usual greeting, her expression serious enough that he did not try to stop her. Dongju looked up from his desk, smiled when he saw her, then immediately recognized something was wrong. "Gloria, what happened?" She threw the file on his desk, papers scattered across the mahogany surface. "Tell me this isn't true." Dongju picked up the nearest document, scanned it, and his expression hardened. He went through the file methodically, his jaw tightening with each page. When he finished, he picked up his phone and made a call. "I need you in my office now. Bring the employment files and legal records for the past 15 years. 30 minutes later, Dongju's head lawyer, a sharp woman named Jennifer Park, arrived with 3 boxes of documentation. For the next hour, Dongju and Jennifer went through Vincent's file point by point, providing context and proof for every implication. The senior associates with criminal records, they were people who had served their time and reformed their lives. Dongju had given them second chances when no one else would. Their criminal backgrounds were public record, disclosed in all employment documentation, and completely irrelevant to their current legitimate work. The legal complaints? All filed by business competitors, all dismissed by courts as frivolous, all part of the normal rough and tumble of competitive business. Dongju had never been found liable for anything illegal. The surveillance photos, meetings with lawyers, accountants, and business partners, all documented, all legal, all easily explained. The cash transactions, employee bonuses and assistance programs, all reported to the IRS, all properly documented, all completely legitimate. The intervention with strategic capital, a legal inquiry into a predatory company's business practices. No threats, no illegal pressure, just public records requests that any citizen could make. Jennifer provided documentation for everything: bank statements, tax returns, employment records, legal filings, court dismissals, every piece of evidence that proved Dongju's operations were completely above board. When they finished, Gloria felt ashamed. She had doubted him. She had let Vincent manipulate her into questioning everything she knew about Dongju. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have known better." But Dongju did not look angry. He looked sad. "No," he said. "Vincent is smart. He knew exactly how to make real information look damaging. He took facts and twisted them into lies. You had every reason to ask questions." He stood and walked around his desk, sitting in the chair next to Gloria instead of across from her. "This is what I meant when I said I've made enemies. When you win as much as I have, people get angry. They look for ways to hurt you, and the truth doesn't matter to them as much as the damage they can cause." Gloria looked at the scattered papers on the desk. "This was about me, wasn't it? He wasn't trying to damage your business. He was trying to turn me against you." Dongju nodded. "He recognized that you matter to me. That makes you a vulnerability he can exploit." "What are we going to do?" Gloria asked. Dongju's expression was carefully neutral. "We do nothing. Vincent will get tired of this tactic when it doesn't work and move on to something else." But Gloria could see the calculation in his eyes. Dongju was planning something. She just did not know what yet. Vincent Park was not the type to give up easily. When his attempt to turn Gloria against Dongju failed, he escalated. 2 weeks after the coffee shop meeting, the file Vincent had shown Gloria appeared in business publications across California. Someone leaked it to reporters at trade magazines and online business news sites. The stories were cautiously worded to avoid libel, but the implication was clear. Questions about Dongju's business practices, concerns about his associates' backgrounds, suggestions that his success came from questionable tactics. It was not enough to destroy Dongju's reputation, but it was enough to create doubt. The timing was devastating. Dongju's company was in final negotiations for a major partnership with a Fortune 500 corporation called American Distribution Systems. The deal was worth $200 million over 5 years and would cement Dongju's company as a major player in national logistics. ADS's executive team was conservative and risk-averse. They had already expressed concerns about partnering with a company run by a first-generation immigrant with aggressive business practices. The leaked file gave them the excuse they needed to pause negotiations pending further review. The media attention was intense. Reporters camped outside Dongju's offices in San Francisco and Seattle. Employees were harassed for comments. Business partners started calling to express concern. Gloria watched Dongju handle it with calculated precision. He did not lash out. He did not make angry statements. Instead, he methodically released documentation proving every allegation false. He held a press conference where Jennifer Park systematically dismantled Vincent's implications with evidence and legal analysis. He invited regulatory audits to prove his company's legitimacy. He provided character references from employees, partners, and community leaders. He released 15 years of tax returns and financial statements to prove his operations were completely transparent. But the damage was done. In business, perception mattered as much as reality. Even with proof of his innocence, the questions lingered. ADS delayed their decision. Other potential partners expressed hesitation. The carefully built reputation Dongju had spent 15 years creating was being eroded by manufactured doubt. Through it all, Dongju remained composed in public, confident, controlled, professional. But Gloria saw him late at night in his office, alone with the lights of San Francisco spread below him. She saw the exhaustion in the slope of his shoulders. She saw the weight of protecting 300 employees and their families. She saw a man who had spent his entire life proving himself, now having to do it all over again. One night, she found him at his desk at 2 a.m, staring at financial projections. "You should sleep," she said quietly from the doorway. Dongju did not look up. "If the ADS deal falls through, we'll survive, but I'll have to delay the expansion. That means postponing hearing. Some people were counting on those new positions." Gloria walked into the office and closed the door. "This isn't your fault." "Isn't it?" Dongju finally looked at her. "I made Vincent an enemy. I could have handled that situation differently years ago. I could have been less aggressive in competing for contracts. I chose to win at all costs, and this is the cost." Gloria sat across from him. "Vincent is doing this because he's bitter and failing, not because you did anything wrong. You competed fairly and won. That's not a crime." Dongju leaned back in his chair. "Do you know what the worst part is? Not the business impact. Not even the media attention. It's that after everything I've built, after 15 years of operating completely legally and ethically, one man with a file of manipulated facts can make people question everything." "Then we prove him wrong," Gloria said firmly. Dongju raised an eyebrow. Gloria pulled out her phone. "I have contacts, other cultural consultants who work with the Fortune 500 companies. I can arrange meetings with ADS's cultural advisors. I can provide character testimony. I can leverage my professional reputation to vouch for yours." Dongju stood abruptly. "No, absolutely not. You are not risking your career for this." "For this," Gloria stood too. "You mean for you? Because that's what this is about, isn't it? You think you have to handle everything alone. You think asking for help makes you weak. I think that you have worked too hard to build your career to risk it on association with me," Dongju said tightly. Gloria stepped closer. "That's my choice to make, not yours." They stared at each other across the desk. The tension was thick enough to cut. Finally, Dongju's expression softened. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Gloria said simply. "Because the truth matters, and because I care about you." The last part hung in the air between them. They had been carefully avoiding that level of emotional honesty, keeping things light and undefined. But this crisis had stripped away their careful distance. "Gloria," Dongju said quietly, "if you do this and it doesn't work, Vincent will come after you too. He'll dig into your background. He'll try to discredit you. He'll make your professional life difficult." "Let him try," Gloria said. I'm not afraid of Vincent Park, and I'm not going to stand by and watch someone destroy a good person with lies. Dongju came around the desk. He took her hands in his, studying her face like he was trying to memorize it. You're sure? I'm sure. For the first time in weeks, Dongju smiled. Okay, let's fight back. Over the next 2 weeks, Gloria executed her plan. She reached out to her network of cultural consultants and business advisors. She arranged meetings with people who worked with ADS, providing them with documentation and personal testimony about Dongju's business practices. She wrote a detailed professional analysis of Dongju's company culture, his employment practices, and his community impact. She included interviews with employees, financial documentation, and legal proof of his legitimate operations. She put her name and reputation on every page. Some of her contacts warned her this was risky. Associating herself so publicly with a controversial figure could damage her career. But Gloria had made her choice. The turning point came when ADS's head of cultural integration, a woman named Patricia Moore, agreed to meet with Gloria in person. They met at a restaurant in San Jose, neutral territory. Patricia was direct. I've read your analysis. It's thorough. But I need to understand why you're going to bat for him so hard. What's your relationship with Dongju? Gloria met her eyes steadily. Professionally, he's a client whose business I've studied extensively. Personally, he's someone I care about. But my professional opinion is based on evidence, not emotion. Everything in my analysis is verifiable. Dongju's company operates with complete transparency and legitimacy. The allegations against him are manipulated facts taken out of context by a business rival. Patricia studied her for a long moment. You know your career will take a hit if you're wrong. I'm not wrong, Gloria said confidently, and I'm willing to stake my professional reputation on that. 2 days later, ADS announced they were moving forward with the partnership. The deal closed within a week. When Dongju found out what Gloria had done, the full extent of how she had advocated for him, he was stunned. He called her to his office, and when she arrived, he just stared at her for a long moment. You risked everything, he said finally. I risked my reputation on the truth, Gloria corrected. There's a difference. Dongju shook his head in amazement. In my entire life, no one has ever put themselves on the line for me like that. I don't know how to process this. Gloria smiled. You don't have to process it. You just have to accept that you're not alone anymore. For the first time since the crisis began, Dongju let himself relax. The tension left his shoulders. The exhaustion showed on his face, but underneath it was relief. Thank you, he said quietly. I don't have adequate words for what you just did, but thank you. Gloria stepped closer and took his hand. You would have done the same for me. You already did with Kendrick. They stood together in his office, the San Francisco skyline glittering behind them, 2 people who had learned to trust each other in the middle of a storm. With the ADS deal secured and Dongju's reputation recovering, attention turned to Vincent Park. Dongju's legal team had spent weeks documenting everything. The defamation, the tortious interference with business relationships, the conspiracy to damage Dongju's company through false information. They had grounds for a devastating lawsuit. Jennifer Park estimated they could pursue damages in the tens of millions. More importantly, they could expose Vincent's failing business practices, his own ethical violations, and his history of predatory tactics against competitors. We can destroy him, Jennifer said bluntly during a strategy meeting in Dongju's conference room. Legally, thoroughly, and permanently, his company won't survive the discovery process alone. Dongju's senior team was unanimous. Vincent had crossed a line. He had attacked not just Dongju but the entire organization. He had put 300 jobs at risk. He had tried to manipulate Gloria. He deserved to be crushed. Gloria sat in on the meeting as an advisor. She watched the team build their case, listened to their arguments for aggressive retaliation, and said nothing. Afterward, when everyone had left, she and Dongju remained in the conference room. What do you think? He asked. Gloria chose her words carefully. I think Vincent deserves consequences for what he did, but I also think you need to decide what kind of person you want to be going forward. Dongju leaned back in his chair. What does that mean? It means, Gloria said, that you have a choice. You can be the person who wins at all costs, who destroys enemies completely, who inspires fear. Or you can be the person who's strong enough to show restraint. Restraint looks like weakness, Dongju said, but his voice lacked conviction. To some people, maybe, Gloria agreed. But to the people who matter, it looks like confidence, like you're secure enough in your power that you don't need to prove it anymore. Dongju was quiet for a long time. Gloria waited, letting him work through the decision himself. Finally, he spoke. I want to crush him. I want Vincent to lose everything like he tried to make me lose everything. I want everyone to know what happens when you come after me. But, Gloria prompted gently. Dongju rubbed his face tiredly. But I'm exhausted. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of proving myself. I'm tired of being the person everyone fears. And I don't know if one more victory will actually make me feel any better. Gloria reached across the table and took his hand. Then, what do you actually want? The question hung in the air. Dongju stared at their joined hands, processing emotions he had spent decades suppressing. I want peace, he admitted quietly. I want to build things instead of destroying them. I want to be proud of who I am, not just what I've accomplished. I want to be the person you see when you look at me, not the person Vincent tried to make me out to be. Then be that person, Gloria said simply. What if people think I've gone soft? Dongju asked. What if they think you've gotten wiser? Gloria countered. Over the next week, Dongju negotiated a settlement with Vincent. The terms were strict but not destructive. Vincent had to publicly retract his allegations. He had to pay damages for the business interference. He had to agree to stay out of Dongju's markets for 5 years and submit to regulatory audits of his own company. But he got to keep his business. His employees kept their jobs. He maintained his dignity. The decision shocked Dongju's senior team. Some thought he was making a mistake. Others were confused by the uncharacteristic mercy. But Sun Hee understood. She pulled Gloria aside after the settlement was announced. You're changing him, she said. In 15 years, I've never seen him choose restraint over retaliation. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Gloria was not sure she was changing Dongju so much as helping him become who he always wanted to be beneath the armor. But she did not argue. The real test came when Dongju's mother called him for the first time in 15 years. She had seen the news coverage of the Vincent Park situation. She had watched her son handle a crisis with grace and come out stronger, and she wanted money. She did not say she was proud. She did not apologize for cutting him off. She just explained that she was having financial difficulties and knew that her successful son could help. Dongju took the call in his office with Gloria present. She watched his face as he listened to his mother's request, watched the old pain surface, watched him struggle between the child who still wanted his mother's approval and the adult who knew he would never get it. When he ended the call, he sat in silence for a long moment. I'm going to send her money, he said finally. Not because she deserves it, not because I owe her anything, but because I can and because letting her struggle won't heal anything for me. Gloria nodded. That's generous. It's strategic, Dongju corrected, but his smile was sad. I'm paying for my own peace, buying distance from the hope that she'll ever be the mother I needed. He turned to Gloria. That call confirmed something I've been realizing. I spent my whole life trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it. My parents, my critics, competitors who hated me. I kept thinking if I achieved enough, won enough, built enough, someone would finally say they were proud of me. His voice caught slightly. But the people whose approval I was chasing were never capable of giving it. My mother will never be proud of me. My father, if he were alive, would never acknowledge what I built. No amount of success will change that. Gloria felt tears prick her eyes. She understood that pain so deeply it hurt. So I'm done, Dongju said firmly. I'm done chasing validation from people who will never give it. I'm done building my life around other people's opinions. I'm done being the person everyone fears because at least fear looks like respect." He looked at Gloria with an expression of such vulnerability it took her breath away. "I want to build for different reasons now," he said. "I want to build because it matters, because it helps people, because it creates something good in the world. And I want to build with people who choose to be in my life because they want to be, not because they need something." Gloria understood what he was really saying. This was about more than business philosophy. This was about them. "I want that too," she said quietly. Dongju stood and walked to where she sat. He knelt beside her chair so they were at eye level. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Relationships, vulnerability, letting someone matter this much. I've spent so long being untouchable." "Then learn," Gloria said, echoing her words from weeks ago. "I'll be patient while you do. We'll figure it out together." Dongju took her hands in his. "I'm going to mess this up sometimes. I'm going to default to old patterns. I'm going to struggle with trust and vulnerability." "I know," Gloria said. "And I'm going to have my own issues. I'm going to overthink things and struggle with being vulnerable too. We're both works in progress." For the first time in his adult life, Dongju allowed himself to be completely honest. "I'm falling in love with you, Gloria, and it terrifies me." Gloria's heart felt like it might burst. "I'm falling in love with you too, and same." They sat together in his office as the sun set over San Francisco. Two people who had spent their lives building walls finally finding the courage to tear them down. 3 months had passed since Dongju settled with Vincent Park. 3 months of growth, change, and building something real with Gloria. Which brought them to this moment. Gloria sitting across from Dongju in his office, saying 5 words that broke him open in the best possible way. "I'm so proud of you." After Dongju composed himself, after the tears stopped threatening to fall, after he explained about his mother's call and her request for money, he and Gloria talked for hours. He told her everything. About growing up feeling worthless because his father said he was. About watching his mother choose a new family over him. About arriving in America at 19 with nothing and building an empire through sheer determination and ruthlessness. "I thought if I achieved enough, I'd finally be worthy," he said. "Worthy of love, worthy of pride, worthy of mattering. But achievement doesn't work that way. You can build an empire and still feel empty if you're building it for the wrong reasons." Gloria listened, holding his hand, letting him purge decades of pain. "When you said you were proud of me," Dongju continued, "it broke me because it was the first time in my life those words came without conditions. Not proud of what I built, not proud of my success, just proud of me for choosing to be better." He looked at her with wonder. "You were proud of me for showing restraint with Vincent, for choosing growth over revenge, for being vulnerable instead of untouchable. You were proud of who I'm becoming, not what I've accomplished." Gloria squeezed his hand. "Because who you're becoming is remarkable. You're still strong and successful, but you're also kind. You're still strategic, but you're also compassionate. You're learning to be powerful and good at the same time." Dongju pulled her closer. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You saw past the reputation and the armor. You believed I could be better before I believed it myself." "You were always capable of this," Gloria corrected. "I just reminded you it was possible." They sat together as the afternoon turned to evening, planning a future that looked nothing like either of them had imagined, but everything they both needed. 3 months later, Gloria and Dongju were together officially. They did not hide their relationship, but they did not announce it either. They simply lived it. Gloria maintained her consulting business, but took on Dongju's company as her primary client. Their professional and personal lives were thoroughly intertwined, and they had learned to navigate both successfully. Dongju made significant changes to his business approach. He was still competitive and strategic, but he had replaced ruthlessness with principle. He started mentorship programs for young Korean-American entrepreneurs. He created pathways for employees to advance within the company. He built relationships with competitors based on mutual respect rather than intimidation. His company thrived. The ADS partnership exceeded expectations. New contracts came in regularly. His reputation transformed from the intimidating Korean boss to the Korean-American businessman who built an empire with integrity. Gloria introduced Dongju to her family properly. Her parents were cautious at first, protective of their daughter, but they warmed to him quickly. Her father appreciated Dongju's work ethic and direct communication style. Her mother loved how he looked at Gloria like she was the most important person in any room. Kendrick became one of Dongju's biggest supporters. He started his fitness business with Dongju as an informal advisor, and the two developed a friendship built on genuine respect. Dongju started therapy to work through his childhood trauma. It was difficult, painful work, but he committed to it the same way he committed to everything, completely. Gloria watched him grow and change, becoming more comfortable with vulnerability, more willing to ask for help, more able to accept love without questioning whether he deserved it. One evening, in their shared apartment in Woodside, California, an exclusive community south of San Francisco where tech executives and business leaders lived, Gloria found Dongju on the phone with one of his young mentees. She stood in the doorway of his home office, watching as he patiently explained business strategy to a 23-year-old Korean-American woman trying to start an import business. He gave advice freely, with no expectation of return, genuinely invested in helping her succeed. When he hung up, Gloria smiled. "You're becoming the person you needed when you were younger." Dongju stood and pulled her into his arms. "Because someone showed me that being powerful and being good aren't mutually exclusive. That success means nothing if you're empty inside, that the only approval that matters is from people who actually know you." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for being proud of me. It's the first time in my life those words didn't feel impossible, and thank you for saying them about who I am. Not what I've accomplished." Gloria wrapped her arms around him. "Get used to it. I plan on saying it a lot. Every time you choose compassion over cruelty, every time you help someone without expecting anything back, every time you're vulnerable instead of untouchable, I'm going to remind you that I'm proud of who you are." Dongju held her tighter. For so many years, he had believed that love had to be earned through achievement, that approval had to be won through success, that mattering required constant proof of worth. But Gloria had taught him something different, that love could be freely given, that pride could come from character instead of accomplishment, that mattering was inherent, not earned. They stood together at the window of their Woodside apartment, looking out over the San Francisco Bay where their story had truly begun. The lights of the city glittered below them, representing millions of lives being lived, millions of stories unfolding. Theirs was just one story among many, but it was theirs, built on honesty and vulnerability and the courage to be better than their wounds. Dongju's empire continued to thrive, but now it was built on something more sustainable than fear and ruthless competition. It was built on purpose, integrity, and genuine care for the people who depended on him. And for the first time in his life, success felt like something worth celebrating because he had someone to share it with. Someone who saw him, really saw him, and chose him anyway. Someone who was proud of him. The final scene showed them together in the golden light of a San Francisco sunset, Gloria resting her head on Dongju's shoulder, Dongju's arm around her waist, holding her close. Two people who had spent their lives proving themselves, finally finding peace in being known. Gloria's voice echoed softly, "I'm proud of you." Not for what he achieved, but for who he chose to become. And that made all the difference.